If we look back at the end of the 2026 election and Democrats have come up one seat short in their bid for the Senate majority, we may well look at this day, Monday, December 8th, as the day that they doomed themselves. And I'll explain why. So we got word late Sunday via the Dallas Morning News that controversial Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett is expected to run for the Senate seat currently held by John Cornyn. The filing deadline, the deadline to decide what race you're running in, is at 6 p.m. in Texas today. Crockett is expected to make her official announcement, either run for re-election in her House seat or run for the Senate by 4:30 p.m. Here's the problem if you're Democrats. This is a seat. Now, it's Texas, but this is a seat that in theory you could win. Republicans have a very crowded primary. 3 people are running. Cornyn, the incumbent, incredibly controversial MAGA acolyte Ken Paxton, the state attorney general, and Congressman Wesley Hunt. Now, the 3 of them, it seems unlikely any of them will get a majority of the vote in the March 3rd primary, which will mean a runoff between the top 2 vote getters, which seem likely to be Paxton and Cornyn. And Paxton is a slight favorite at this point, which creates opportunity for Democrats, because even though Texas is Texas, still a Republican state, Paxton is someone that isn't going to sit well with a lot of, I guess I'd call them country club Republicans who live in wealthy suburbs of Houston and Dallas and even San Antonio, who are Republicans but don't want the version of Republicanism that Paxton is selling, right? This is a guy who was impeached by the Republican-led state House, though cleared by the state Senate. This is a guy whose wife very publicly announced that she was getting a divorce because he had strayed from the biblical definition of marriage. There's a lot there. But Democrats may be blowing it, and I'll explain why. They had a 2-way primary. State Rep James Tallarico, very popular among national Democrats, kind of a guy who's on the more liberal end, but is religious and is seen as kind of a young rising star within the party, who polling suggested could run competitively statewide, was in the race, as was Colin Allred, who had run against Ted Cruz and lost in 2024 and was a former member of Congress. Well, on Monday, it seems in expectation of Crockett getting in the race, Allred got out of the Senate race and announced that he is instead running in the newly redrawn 33rd district, House district in Texas, which for the moment leaves Tallarico as the only candidate. It seems to me Crockett, based on the Dallas Morning News and other credible reporting, Crockett is going to run. She appears to be set to run for the Senate. Why is that a problem for Democrats? Well, because I think she's a very formidable candidate in a primary. I don't think it's a guarantee that she wins the Democratic primary, but she's a formidable candidate in a primary. African-American woman that in a Democratic primary in Texas that has real sway. She's a nationally known figure. She's, one of probably the 5 or 6 most high-profile House members. Some of that is due to Donald Trump constantly attacking her and saying she has a low IQ. But she is someone who has put herself out there repeatedly as a person willing to fight fire with fire when it comes to Donald Trump. That's going to appeal to lots of Democrats who vote in primaries in Texas. The problem is that I am not sure Jasmine Crockett has any path to 50% of the vote in a general election, even against Ken Paxton. You could convince me that Tallarico, who presents a little bit differently, much less confrontational than Crockett, in theory could appeal to some of those country club Republicans who didn't want to vote for Ken Paxton. I don't see how Jasmine Crockett, convinces those people to be for her. And I think that if she is the nominee, and as I said, I don't think her being the nominee is a foregone conclusion. I think there's a possibility that Tallarico wins the primary anyway. But if she is the nominee, even if Ken Paxton emerges out of that primary, I think that it's going to be difficult for Jasmine Crockett to win statewide, even in what looks like a good year nationally for Democrats. Like the wind appears to be blowing at Democrats' backs here nationally. I don't know that she can win a general election statewide in Texas. I'm not sure Texas is ready for a senator as liberal and as outspokenly liberal and as outspokenly anti-Trump as Jasmine Crockett is. And I do think the problem is, I think national Democrats know that. I think they've wanted Tallarico from the start. I think Allred was their choice at the beginning, but the energy behind Tallarico, they would gladly take him. He's raised a ton of money, which you need in Texas, but they don't really have that much power over Jasmine Crockett. I'm not sure national Democrats can get Jasmine Crockett to not run in a race because they don't think she has a chance of winning the general election, right? We'll see. It'll be a test. I mean, if Jasmine Crockett winds up as a Democratic nominee, I will tell you that political wisdom would suggest she's not going to win a general election. Stranger things have happened, like 2 terms of Donald Trump. So it's not impossible, but I would say we could well look back as if Democrats make a run at the Senate majority and they have the people in place in theory to start doing that. We may look back at this day, assuming Jasmine Crockett announces that she is running in the Senate race, look back on this day and say, this is the day where that opportunity in Texas got a little less appealing. And if Crockett is the nominee, I don't know that national Democrats spend any money in Texas. Whereas I think if Tallarico is a nominee against, say, Paxton, then I think they would spend money. So this could be a tough day for Senate Democrats' chances of retaking that majority. I do think Jasmine Crockett is going to run. I think she is probably a slightly better than even odds chance at being the Democratic nominee. And I think she has a under 10% chance of winning the general election. And that's not what you want to hear if you're a Democrat. Okay, that's it for me. As always, I ask you to do one thing, subscribe, and you will get this sort of free content every day of the week. And you also help me grow as an independent news creator. Win-win. All right, take care.